Welcome to Stand Up Memories, another episode with the terrific
Now, this is the part
Patty
of the show
Rosborough.
where you're going to pretend that you haven't been talking to Patty for the last 20 minutes.
No, this is
This
just
is, what did you call it? Creative spontaneity?
This is the illusion of the first time. That's a new show with Patty Rosborough, the terrific comedian. You and I.
So nice to see you, Patty.
Lovely to see the both of you. We really said nothing of importance before this, right?
No, we didn't. It's all happening spontaneously.
Do you see the antiques?
I do.
And that's just me and you.
She's no. I guess
That's me.
right.
Let's be honest.
We've been around for a while. This show is Stand Up Memories. I didn't even get to say your name, Jackie, the Joke Man Martling, and Patty Rosborough, Peter Bales. We've known each other probably since the 80s, even earlier, when it comes to Jackie and I.
At least 40 years, which is kind of embarrassing.
And you are still out there hitting the floorboards doing stand-up.
We all, what else are we going to do, right?
I remember when I was 40 and I said, you know, if I'm 60 and I'm still doing this, somebody kill me. And here I am, 66 and still doing this. And luckily no one's killed me. So
I love younger women.
I bet you made sure there were no guns in the house.
I don't know. I'm like addicted to it. It's like, I don't know. It's really fun.
Right? Why would you ever stop? I always tell people I'm retired until the phone rings. You know, like,
yeah, exactly.
You just go do it, you know, and sometimes it's horrible.
Well, that's true.
It's not a horrible experience telling the jokes, but the places and the setups and, you know, because I just say yes to anything, you know.
Yeah.
I say yes to the stuff that Bales turns down, you know.
Now,
it's always, if they set up the thing right, if there's a good mic, good sound, they give you a little bit of the stage and they have a little bit of light, it's great. When they're doing the tickets or whatever, the
raffle, the 50-50.
Before you go on, the mic sucks. It's going to be, you can't win in those situations.
We were just talking about the gigs. I don't think, I hate to even say it out loud because I can't remember whether I did one or just got frightened by the thought. But when the speakers are in the ceiling,
Those terrible.
Oh,
I did a bridal shower with that. Oh my God, you can't hear anything. It's terrible.
yeah, once in a while you go into a place and they actually have a sound system, but you see those things and
Horrible.
They have to be paying attention. Every comedian has a story of the worst introduction they ever got. Back in my early day, I was performing at a college and my introduction was this: the head of the student union, a kid, going, "Shut up, shut up, shut up. All right, you're on." That was an introduction I got.
My favorite introduction story that I don't know if I ever told it on the show, but I probably shouldn't have, but I might have. There was a guy named Grover Silcock.
Yes.
He was from Philadelphia. And the reason I like telling his story is because it took me about a year or two to recall his name. I would say, yeah, come on, you guys. I asked the guys from Philly, the only guy I ever knew who wore a bow tie. That has to narrow it down, but I couldn't come up with it. And he was emceeing at Chuckles, and I was headlining Chuckles in Mineola.
Yeah.
And just before I went up, he said, "What do you want me to say about you?" And I said, "Tell him I have the biggest cock on the East Coast." And he walked up, and 10 seconds later, he said, "Here's Jackie Martling, a guy who has the biggest cock anybody ever told me they had." And I said, "This guy is fast on his feet." That was the switch. I was probably too lewd for this show, but I don't care. It was just brilliant, you know.
I love it. Do you remember John Byrne, the impressionist? Was his name John Byrne?
John Byrne, the impressionist.
Was that not his name?
John.
He had that show A&E comedy on. Do you remember that guy? Did you guys do that show?
John Byner.
Byner. Shit, that's his name.
Byner.
The incredible John Byner. And I did that show.
Yeah, I did that show. So here's my intro from him. He goes, "Okay, what's your name?" And I go, it's Patty Rosborough, but on the card it looks like Patty Rosborough. But don't say Patty Rosborough, because there were two S's from Ireland. You know, I was so nervous. This is my first TV thing. And he goes, yeah. So he goes, so wait a minute. So it's not Patty Rosborough, it's Patty Rosborough. I go, yeah. He goes, I'm going to write it down right here. I'm going to put the two S's like you say. And he puts it down. He goes, don't worry, I've got it. So he brings me up. He's such an asshole. He goes, let's hear it. For Patty Rosborough, Patty Rosborough. That's right, here she is, Patty Rosborough. It fucked me up. Sorry, I'm so bad. I'm like, what did this guy just? And that's why Tom and Jenyo always calls me and Patty Rosborough, because that guy was, just messing.
And you realize you would have been much better off just taking your chances.
I should have said nothing. I was trying to control the situation, and that's always.
I actually, at the Ice House in California, I said to the guy who was giving me an offstage intro, it's Peter Bales, just like bales of hay. And then, 15 minutes, he introduces me live before the audience. And now welcome your host and MC, Peter Bales, just like bales of hay. I didn't mean for him to say that. It just,
it's so funny. Sometimes you screw people up without meaning. I got booked at the Ice House.
Yes.
For whatever reason, because I didn't work out there, and somebody must have brought me out there to do a show and got me on there too. And there was some comic. He was from LA, and I think he was doing pretty well. And I think what happened was he actually had really important people there to see his set. He finally got some people from whoever was important. But I didn't know the guy. He didn't know me. And you know me, I have my act. And you have your act that you do. And 5 seconds before I went on, because he was a real blue guy. What's Steve Bluestein? Is that a name? At any rate,
Ed
5
Bluestone.
seconds.
Ed
No, not
no?
Ed Bluestone.
No?
I think Steve Bluestein.
Okay.
I could be wrong. But we didn't talk. They're weird out in California. They're not like social animals out there. At least the people I met when I did shows like in Walnut Creek, where I think everybody's kind of themselves. In 5 seconds, it turns out he was a very dirty comedian.
Right.
And of course, if you're a dirty comedian, I don't want somebody dirty before me.
Right.
Because I say just don't. They can be as funny as they want, but don't break every premise.
Right.
But I'm a dirty comic, so whoever booked it, and 5 seconds before I went on, he goes, "You're not dirty, are you?" And he must have thought I went up there and purposely was as foul as I could be, but I just did my act. And of course, it broke every premise, and he did not do well. And I think if he saw me now, he would kill me. But that's the booker's fault.
It is.
Now,
Absolutely.
Patty, did you ever do Pips?
Oh my God.
Oh
I
my
did
God.
Pips.
Pips
The
is
guy, Ronnie with the nose job. Remember that guy?
yes. But we're speaking of introduction.
That guy,
You just say?
Who with the nose job?
Ronnie. Remember Ronnie who worked there at the bar?
Oh, with the nose job.
Do you remember he had this little teeny nose? I mean, I think it was a nose job. He had a big head and this little whittled down nose. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Ronnie, the guy with the nose job behind the bar at Pips.
He was a
Who's,
bartender. I
familiar to our listeners and watchers. I got to tell you this club, everybody at home, is legendary. One of the first comedy clubs in New York City had a painting on the wall, or actually a frame on the wall, with checks that had been cashed by Rodney Dangerfield, Joan Rivers, Robert Klein,
David
Brenner for
Yep.
$10
because that's what they paid.
$10.
$10.
I worked at Pips for a weekend, and it was so early on. I had just gotten my brand new comedy albums, so I was so excited. I must have sold the hell out of them, and I sold like $100 worth, or $75 worth of albums, which like an extra $75 was like a big deal. But I guess I drank so much that they never had me back. And for you guys to be talking about the bartender, the irony that I don't know who the bartender was, because 20 years later, I ran into Freddie Stoller for the first time in Atlantic City. I was with Rip Taylor, of all people, and Freddie Stoller was dating Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira's daughter.
Okay.
Amy.
Really? I love Fred Stoller.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jackie Martling. He says, I'm Fred Stoller. He said, oh, Jackie Martling. You're the guy who was banned from Pips because you drank too much. I'm like, that was a den of iniquity. I mean, heroin and coke and booze and everything. And to be banned from Pips for drinking, I was like, wow, I should get a crown or something.
That was the 80s, and it was Italian women parading up and down with this tight spandex and the high hair. And I remember it, and I remember it fondly.
Of course.
But I brought it up because there was an MC who was probably on stage for the first and last time in his life, who was trying to remember my name, Peter Bales, and he panicked. He forgot it, and he introduced me as Norman Bates.
He was being funny.
No, he wasn't. He panicked and he forgot my name, and he brought me up as the guy from Psycho.
Well,
come on, that is insane.
That is true. That is
But
absolutely.
that's insane. He's mentally ill.
I'm going to take a shot here and see. I don't know if I ever told this story. I might have. But were you around when there was a guy named, now I'm going to forget the guy's name.
That's how
Oh, God, Jackie.
This is called stand-up memories. Sometimes
Mark, what's his name? That couldn't get hired.
Mark Center.
Did you know who Mark Center was?
Mark
No.
Center,
All right, I won't put you through the whole
No, go
thing.
ahead.
a nice guy.
Who could not. All the comics thought he was so funny because he was like from outer space. But he would stand there and he'd pull up on the microphone cable and say, a comic in China just fell down. That kind of spacey stuff, but it was so funny. And he couldn't get hired. And when I was running Governors, they specifically said, do not bring that guy back. He doesn't get a laugh. So I'd have to wait 2 or 3 months till they forgot about him before I could book him again, because he couldn't get any work. And I liked him. He's a nice guy.
Did the audience like him? Did the
No.
audience?
No. The comics are standing in the back, but we honestly thought he was funny. And at one Christmas, I ran into him at the comic strip, and he had just gotten a job as a department store Santa Claus. And I said, what's up, Mark? He said, I just got a job as a department store Santa Claus. It's nice to have something steady. He wound up,
Now, Jackie,
he's not with us anymore, but he was
Oh,
a great
no.
guy.
Patty has something great,
Oh, I've seen them.
Besides that, Patty has
Besides.
something great. And this is pretty unique in the stand-up comedy world. She performs now stand-up with her daughter, who performs
Is that true?
stand-up.
That is true. We
Molly
don't do
Cornfeld.
it's not a doubles act. Like, we're not both on the stage at the same time. But
When
she
you're
does
on
her
and she's
act
on?
and I do mine. She talks about her. Yeah, she goes on. She does her stuff about her gay father and her dating life and her this and that. And then I go up and I talk about my gay ex-husband. And I do say that's my daughter. Like, a lot of people don't believe that's my daughter. We don't really look alike that much. But they're like, they come up to us after, that's not, I go, no, really, that's my gay ex-husband is her gay father.
Does she look like you?
Not really. She's very good looking. She's
No,
very pretty. She's
she's-
got long black hair.
Ah,
She's
don't
got-
sell yourself short.
Don't knock down our Patty.
Okay,
Come
but
on.
she's a very pretty girl, and she wears the red lips, and she's got the, the cute jeans and
I'm
the.
going to go out on a limb right here. She's probably younger.
Now,
And I was an old mother, so she's way younger. You know what I mean? But
well, it's terrific that your daughter followed you into stand-up comedy. Were you glad about that? I mean,
well, you know what? It's weird because I remember when she went to college, she got into Vassar, and she was like, I was a comic, her father was a comic, and both of us were a couple of losers. Like, we made no money at it. We were always like, we didn't have money, and we didn't know, we were like idiots. So we were always scrounging. So she said, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm never doing comedy like you guys. So she studies at Vassar. She goes to France one year. She studies economics. So she gets a job with some kind of I don't know what her job was when she got out, but they're like, oh, you can't wear colored nail polish and can't wear your hair in a top knot. You got to do this. And And she had to travel to do presentations. And it sounds so shitty. And part of me was like, sad, like, why isn't she going into theater? Why isn't she doing singing? And so then one day she calls me and she goes, I'm going to do stand-up this Thursday at an open mic. I'm like, what? Like, she hated that I did stand-up. She hated that her father did stand-up. And I said, well, maybe you should take a class first, or have you been watching comedy? She goes, not really.
Right out of the blue?
Out of the blue, she goes, I wrote 5 minutes. And I'm like thinking, well, this is going to be maybe not so good. I go,
Yeah.
well, let's hear it. And then she's telling me, and they sound like real jokes. And I'm like, how is she? And then she sent me a tape of her going on, and she did really well, which was like, the first time I went on, I couldn't remember I cried when I came out. I mean, it was like horrible. So I was telling her, look, it's going to be really bad the first, but I don't know what came over her, but all of a sudden, and then that's it. And she does
Patty,
stand like 5 nights
I have got to stop you.
Go ahead.
Fails. We did 25 shows, just me and him.
Yes.
And we had some guests, and that was fine. Then we went out a little outside, and we had a comic, and then the comic and his wife. And then we had a comic and the comic and her husband. And then we had a young comic and then a young female comic. You knew that she has a daughter in stand-up, and it didn't dawn on you how fucking interesting that would be?
I just brought it up.
But you know it.
And you know that this show is going to end on a note of, oh, please, Patty, come back with Molly. And maybe the audience at home heard something and they don't know Patty and is going, wait, a gay husband? Is there more to that? Of course there's more to that.
She made that up.
No, she didn't. Eric Kornfeld, a really nice guy.
I'm not touching that name. I know you make a cheap
I know.
joke with that,
No,
but I'm not going to.
No,
I'm
Eric,
sure she does.
she does. But Patty has an interesting life, a daughter, a terrific comedian and gay ex-husband. But I mean, that can't be easy for a wife to find out that your husband is gay.
Next thing you tell me is her son books the comic strip.
Well, that's next. That's next. But there's a lot to Ms. Rosborough. No, it's Patty Rosborough. Everybody, that's the way you pronounce her name, Patty Rosborough. And she's terrific. She does characters. She's high energy. There's so much to ask her. You don't take any crap from anybody, but when you started out, it's not easy to be a female comic. And I did
well, mainly because guys like us were.
Because me and you.
I think that when I first started, like, it was always just, if there was a girl on the show, it was one girl on the show. So you never got to work with girls, because for the longest time, for years and years, one girl on a show ruled, because they would say, hey, can you put me on with so-and-so? They go, no, nobody wants to see two girls on one show. And I'm like, well, you put two guys on one show. They'd always be like, well, that's different. But the very first show I went up for, was that Pip show. That was my first comedy show where I got paid. I was getting paid whatever it was back then, $10 or $20.
$10.
And I took a ride with whoever it was who drove me out there. And talk about being a girl and being scared. I was the only girl on the show, and I was supposed to do 25 minutes. I did 15 and couldn't remember the rest of my act, and I got off the stage. And that guy, Ronnie, comes up to me and he puts his hand like against the wall, like that, with me in between his arm and the wall. And he leans in and he goes, you listen to me. He goes, the next show, you do 25 minutes. You don't get off that stage till you see the light. There's going to be a light. And I don't care what you do. I don't care if you twiddle your thumbs up there for the next, you're not getting off or you're not getting paid. And I was and he's like looking like this, an inch from my face. And I'm like afraid this guy going to beat me up or something. And I just started, I did my 15. You think you have 25 minutes when you start, and it's really like 10 when you do it speed time, like at home.
Right. If it's not working, it says zoom, 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 zoom.
Oh my God. And they're screaming, you're ugly. You're all, that crowd was like heckling. So anyway, and I did my full 25, but I started doing improv. So I did like, luckily I'd taken improv classes. I'm doing improv character. I'm pulling shit out of my ass. I didn't know what to do. But like that, and I did get paid. But those kind of things, like when I would do Long Island used to be pretty rough on young girls back then. Now it's so much easier. Now that I'm old and nobody wants to bang me, nobody bothers me on stage. When you're young and you're cute, oh my God, they're like, show us your tits, bend over, do all. But when I was in Long Island, I think the whole reason that I'm high energy and I talk fast and I get up there and I'm like, bam, 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 because I can't give them a chance to yell out, show me your tits. You know what I mean?
Excuse me.
Listen.
Would you tell her that I still want to bang her?
I will tell her that, and I'll also.
I mean, the legion may be diminishing. But
Now listen,
we're still out here.
I really want to
I didn't
apologize.
say her daughter.
I
I
wanna-
said her.
I want to apologize for some of the things I might have said back in the 80s.
Me too. I apologize for
no.
a lot of things that Bale said in the 80s.
But I mean that times have changed. I mean, and you've seen it, you've lived it. But we all struggle when we start out in comedy, and I could not imagine my sons going through that, which is why they did not encourage them to go into stand-up.
Right.
How is it as a mother to watch? Have you ever seen your daughter bomb?
But she said she
How do
did
you-
good right out
I
of
know,
the
but
gate.
but every comedian bombs. Every comedian. How can you?
No,
you
I
must
haven't
feel
seen her bomb.
everything that happens to her. You must feel.
Now, hold on,
I've
hold
only,
on. What would be much worse is if her daughter did great and then she bombed.
don't think that's what I'm not what I'm worried about. Like, I'm always like, and she's doing really well. And I'm thinking, I hope to God I don't suck. But you know what? It's like the first time I worked with her, I'm like, oh my God, I hope I don't like embarrass her and like just be horrible. But every time I go up, I'm always, I always have the fear right before I
You
go up.
are such.
You've
a
been around.
killer- you're a
such
killer.
a pro. Yeah,
You're a killer act. You're not going to bomb. But do you still worry about that?
Well,
If-
I did a gig for somebody recently, and it was that situation. They did the baskets right before me, 45 minutes of baskets. The microphone sucked. I'm like, can you turn the mic up? They go, it is up. It's all guys in the audience. Nobody told me it was going to be all guys. It was a Yankee game on. They're all watching on their phones.
But there's certain things where you just, that it is not even a little bit your fault, and still
that
on
was,
the way home
yeah,
in the-
that I blame them. That was like, but that was so painful. That was like, and then the guy walks up in the middle of my act and goes, okay, we're going to end the show. I'm like, what are you talking about? He got, and I was on for 20 minutes. I was supposed to do 45. He goes, yeah, we're good. We got to get out of here at 10 o'clock. I go, well, why didn't you tell me that before I went on? So they did the basket so long. That was more important than the show.
And then you got to go up and say, by the way, where's my check?
Did you get paid?
It was so huge. It was like one
Oh,
humiliation
listen,
after another.
This is too
Yeah.
good. We're gonna
Usually
do an
it's great,
encore.
though.
Where's
Usually
your
it's
daughter
fun.
live?
Where does your daughter live?
In the city. She's in the city.
Oh, so she's, not to be rude, but she's accessible.
Well, in terms of location, she's
Yeah.
accessible. That's not what you
So we
usually.
request that you owe us one, that you come, fetch your daughter, come out here and do the show, the two of us. We
Oh,
will take you to a nice dinner on Peter. And it'll be a
But
spectacular.
here's the problem. She has a 9-to-5 job.
with all of that pesky money that she makes.
Because she has a real job, and then she does comedy like 5 nights a week.
All right.
She's crazy.
We'll do it by Zoom. We'll do it in person. Also, you have wonderful stories about, you're friends with your husband. I mean, Eric Kornfeld, super nice guy, really funny comedian, right? I mean, I've
Yeah.
heard you.
He doesn't do stand-up comedy anymore, but he still writes for people. Like I don't know if he still writes for Bette Midler, but he was writing for Bette Midler for a really long time. He used to write her patter and her song
Yeah.
parodies and do all that kind of stuff. And yeah, he was just here over Christmas. We were playing board games when my kids were home, and his husband comes over sometimes. It was
Modern Family. I love it.
So, daughter and no daughter, we will have her back with her ex-husband and his husband, whatever they're called. I can't keep up.
And Molly and her husband, Kevin, who is a wonderful guy who puts up with a bit of neurosis.
She's married.
No, Not her husband, my husband.
Her husband.
I'm married. No, she's not married. My husband, Kevin, he is a saint. He's like normal. He has no anxiety. He's lovely. Nothing.
All right, we got to end this.
We got to commit.
It's like a whole goddamn family reunion with the Rosborough.
No, Rosborough, Patty Rosborough. And you are wonderful. You've always been wonderful from the first time I saw you with props all over the place and
My God, I know.
outfits on stage.
I used to wear almost like clown outfits. I don't know what the hell. I don't
So
know
funny.
what I
So
was-
funny. Still so funny. Patty
Well, you
Rosborough.
guys, I love always working with you. I loved working with you guys in Long Island. I would go out to Long Island. And I will say, you guys were always nice to me. Even in the beginning, when I didn't know anybody, you guys, when I did shows with you guys, you were always so nice. And there were a lot of there were some
It's so nice to hear that because,
Thank you.
you know, I run into people who say, oh, I met you 30 years ago. And because people remember the people that were nice, because so many people weren't.
I absolutely, I totally, I remember the shit heels and I remember who's nice to me, and I'm Irish. So I really remember, and I hold a grudge.
We're going to have an encore stand-up memories with the one and only Patty Rosborough.
We got to go.
All
That's
right.
that's been Jackie Martling. I've been Peter Bales. You've been Patty Rosborough. Thank you so much.
Love you guys. Thank you for having me. Kisses, kisses.
A pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
That was a pretty good episode.
A new episode every Wednesday with me, Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, comedians, interesting people. Leave a comment. We'll get what am I saying?
I don't know.
We're gonna get back to you. We will respond to your comment.
Standupmemories.com. If you go there, it shows all the different
Oh,
platforms.
Spotify, we're on everything.
Every Wednesday.
Stand Up Memories,
Every Wednesday.
a new episode.